Manoj. All right. Let's see. So let's see, just to kind of recap, where's my screen share? So to recap from last week, this is kind of the, so first of all, the spec is for the most part complete-ish. We think we have a working model, and we've already got multiple standards represented in that model. My team is actually in the process of using this now. So we'll continue on to see if we run into any challenges. By the way, so the PCI Security Standards Council, they reached out again with yet another one of their standards that they want us to convert for them. So we will do that. And I'm going to try to get that done probably in the next week or so. I got some time in the evenings. My spouse is traveling this week, so I've got the evenings free. But I'm going to try to get that done in the next week or so. Can't remember what standard they wanted us to do, but I'll try to get that posted. But this is the outline of the guide that we were trying to create. So just like the SBOM guide, we're going to have an authoritative guide on attestations, and this was kind of the outline of that guide. The thing that I have on my to-do is then to take this outline and make the associated markdown files so that we can actually start working on these guides in GitHub with proper version control and everything else that you would expect. So I will do that, and we can do that on the call too if we want. Ian, you said you had to drop early?
Unfortunately, I do, and then I'm going to be on travel next week.
Oh, okay, right on. Let me know. There's a high probability that I will not be able to make it to KubeCon this year, even though it's literally in my backyard. But if you're going to be in town, let me know. We can meet up around there. I think it's at McCormick or something, right? Let me know and we can meet up for drinks or whatever.
I'll be there. I don't know if anyone else will be there. Anyone else planning to be at KubeCon?
We are going to have some people from Thailand attend. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to attend yet. I just came from Chicago not too long ago, so.
Yes, me and Ricardo actually met in person. He actually is more than just an avatar on Zoom.
Right.
He does exist.
I'm a human, guys. No, but I got to meet Steve at his office. That was tremendous. Thank you for making that happen, Steve. It was great to connect with you in person and learn more. So
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming.
Yeah, this meeting today for me too is that educational. Right? I haven't attended this meeting in a while, but I want to see where the guide is, like attestation guide, what you've done so far. This is really good work.
Well, this is all. This is what we've done so far. Like literally last week was us. Well, we need a guide. Let's kind of brainstorm and how we're going to separate out what it is that we need for a guide. One of the things that we concluded, I think, early on is that our reader for this guide, the persona for this guide, is going to be very, very different than the person who reads the SBOM guide, who is going to be semi-technical in some cases, or at least in charge of maybe builds or maybe even policy. But the person for reading this guide is a very, very different individual, usually in an audit function, maybe a GRC function, maybe a policy function, just a very, very different type of target. So we were trying to speak to kind of that audience.
Unfortunately, I'm going to drop. It seems like, I guess, in the structure I'll go ahead and start on the SSDF portion of the standards. So I'll start on that subpage, and I'll
Okay.
get the official third parties one updated also.
Awesome. All right. Yeah, I'll get that in place.
So
Cheers.
talk to you later.
All right.
And Steve, if you address this, can you walk me through, or the members that actually listen to your videos online, what is the ultimate goal here? Because you're creating sort of like introduction standards and then making attestations, and you're creating what's on the right of that, I guess, maybe.
These are just sections within those chapters. So the guides on the left, the introduction standards session, these are basically chapters within the guide. And then like introduction is you got multiple sections within that chapter, right? So we were kind of outlining the book, the guide essentially. So there's a lot of content that we need to write.
Got it. And where in this guide do you speak about open source dependencies?
I don't think we do.
Would you separate that from like proprietary code? I guess is there a
Well, what about an open source dependency would we attest to?
based on the, so have you seen the tacos framework just by any chance? I think we've shared that before. So that focuses primarily on the open source library packages in terms of verification and looking at provenance data on those packages that meets the SSDF standards, for example.
Yeah, I mean, is it a standard though?
It's not
Does it
as,
have a list of requirements?
it does have a list of requirements. So like to some degree it does. Let me pull it up. I'll paste it on the show.
So if we were to be able to represent that framework as a standard with requirements and possibly even sub requirements, if we were able to represent it in that kind of context, just like we can every other standard, then we could very easily attest to it.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's the principle of that framework that was published, and that has been shared with the open source community just to see if there's some validity or enhancements that need to be made. But overall, the community has received it quite well. So when we're looking at open source dependencies, for example, it speaks to that way, sort of standard verification, right? That could be repeatable across the ecosystem.
So where in this, you sent me the link.
Yeah.
Let me share my screen so other people can kind of see what I'm looking at. Let's see, share. Okay, so where in this, I mean, I see some, I see this, but this is kind of your own kind of
right.
attestation thing.
Yeah, if you look at the tacos framework, there's a tacos spec on GitHub. So I just posted it on the second page there.
Oh, second page. Okay.
On the second link, yeah. So that one speaks to like the actual sort of metadata that needs to be verified. And so in terms of the standard, I don't know if we have published the actual SSDF control that's verified, right? That's being checked on, but we do have it on our data set. Actually, there he is. So it speaks to the SSDF related practices and tasks at the very bottom on their status and goals, where it has the CISA attestation form mapping.
Okay.
It's just a thought. I thought it came to mind just because you were talking about standard, like, sort of attestation, right? I wanted to know if you consider dividing the differences between, open source dependencies versus non-open source, right?
Well, I mean, again, this is a general purpose attestation framework. So we can attest to SSDF or any of the PCI standards or underwriters laboratories or whatever it is that we want to do.
I was just going to second that, Ricardo. This is the way we have designed our spec is it's open, so you can combine any standard and any claim and evidence, and the scope of the claim and evidence and the standard applies to whatever you define. So if you want to define it for the open source dependencies, we can define that attestation just for that open source dependency, and we attach claims and evidence supporting that open source dependencies, and we make an attestation. So this is the open framework, which is not tied to a specific standard. So we want standards to kind of be adopted to, like, we have kept it flexible so that this attestation framework can be used for any standard and map it to any claims and evidence we have. But anyway, so that was repeating what Steve was saying.
Yeah, it's more like a general guide, right? Like you're saying, it doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's software, here's the guidance of things you to consider and things you should check for, right?
Yeah, so with that context in mind, if the taco spec were to, you know, you've got the mappings, which is fine, but if you wanted to create, like, if you wanted to create, I don't know what the best thing would be. I mean, you've got like all these different fields here, what they are, etc. I mean, you could theoretically make each one of these a requirement in the overall standard. You'd have to add a lot more words to it. I mean, this is a good start, but most standards have some additional words and context, possibly even some guidance. And you could build this out a little bit and then very easily put it into the spec. Yeah.
No, it's good to know. And obviously I'll reference this video to you know, the experts who created this framework from our side that took the liberty to like research this quite extensively and create the mapping, right? So it'd be good to know that. Thank you.
Yeah. Of course. But yeah, this has been on my radar for a while.
So Steve, I was going to ask, like, Ricardo, if you're done with the questions you have, okay. Yeah, so on the documentation part, Steve, how are we approaching, like, kind of structuring the? I mean, by structuring, what problems do we want to tackle first, or what chapters do we want to tackle first? Do you have a specific order in mind? Because I was thinking I can take claims, but if I have to take claims, I can only give an abstract. And if we want to give standard specific examples, for example, Ian, once he finishes SSDF, then we can go ahead and create a claim example for SSDF. Yeah. So I was thinking there is some dependency there. So is there a framework you had in your mind on how to approach these chapters?
No, not particularly, because again, like you said, you know, the standards are going to probably refer to the attestations, which are probably going to refer to the evidence. There's going to be some interdependencies here, which is fine. I would just recommend putting a to-do, like capital TODO. That way, if there's anything in the text that we actually need to come back to, we can just do a search on that text and find it very easily. That would be my recommendation. That's what I did. That's what we did with the SBOM guide. Because that was not a linear progression. That was like very, I'm going to do this section, and now that person's going to do this section, and we had to kind of tie it all kind of together toward the end.
Well, I can take up that claims, and I'll start.
Okay. Yeah, that would be great. I can I can likely work on. You know who would be really good at the introduction, though? I was going to say I'll take the introduction, but you know who would be really good is Jeff.
Yeah, I think so too. And he has very strong opinions on how this can be applied. So it's really, really useful to get his thoughts on the introduction.
Yeah, Jeff, if you're listening, we just gave you work. Yeah, I can take the standard section. If Jeff could do the introduction, that would be amazing. I mean, he could literally whip that off in 10 minutes, probably too. Standards I can do. You can do the claims. Let's see. Oh, wait. Well, he was going to do the SSDF part of the standards, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Ian was
Ian.
going to.
Ian.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Um, quite honestly, I think the majority of this, I think the intro, the standards, the attestations, and the evidence, if I had my crystal ball, would go fairly smooth, actually. Nonconformance, we're going to start getting into interesting things. And then the implementing is also going to get kind of interesting. That might actually be a really lengthy chapter, or we might have to break that up. I'm not sure yet. We'll figure it out when we get there.
You left Derek.
What's that?
Do you know if Derek was actively contributing to? He was initially contributing for.
Do I know what?
Derek is still.
Oh,
Actively,
Derek. I haven't seen Derek in the last couple of weeks.
okay.
So I'm not sure where he's at.
And he is he was very keen on the signing section a little bit. So
That's
I was,
true.
yeah.
If you're still involved, please. Yes, yes, yes. The I take it you both kind of heard about the announcement last week. I think it was last Thursday about ECMA. No?
Please share. What was the announcement?
Yeah, so OWASP announced that we've joined ECMA. We have formed TC54, Technical Committee 54 within ECMA. It'll be formally voted on in December, but it's been approved by the Secretary General of ECMA. And the group is, again, it's TC54. It is for software and system transparency. And one of the major things, obviously, is standardizing CycloneDX. So that's going to be the bulk of the work that we do. Also related to that is package URL. So there's a high probability that Perl, 99% probability that Perl will join TC54 as kind of a subgroup. We're also going to be looking at sharing as well. I know Cisco, for example, Elliot posted a link to the SBOM forum, but that's more of a device discovery type thing. We're working on something a little bit bigger than that. So that'll also be part of that technical committee. But the founding members of the TC are IBM, ServiceNow, and Bloomberg, as well as the OWASP Foundation. So we're really excited about it. It's we will be publishing our working model of how it's still going to be community driven, just like it is today. It was very important that OWASP did not have a pay-to-play model because, again, it's all about community, having everyone an equal seat at the table, which is really important to us. Not all standards organizations are like that. But we wanted a community model with active participation from the TC, not just a rubber stamp. So we wanted active participation with the TC, as well as the formal governance of the standardization process from that TC. So we've created a working model for that, and I think it's going to kind of set the bar essentially for how open source standards and international standards bodies actually work together in the future. So we've taken a few playbooks from TC39, which is the JavaScript, folks. They're able to have a standard and release that every single year. They're able to keep up that pace of continuous innovation. And that's what we wanted to do as well, right? If you look at that other standard, for example, the latest version of that latest standard is not an ISO standard, for example, because it takes a long time. So we wanted to continue with our yearly releases of Cyclone, and have all of those releases also ECMA international standards as well. So that's kind of where we're going. I mention it because now we're going to have an ECMA standard that can now describe other standards. And I think this is kind of a big deal, right? It gives a lot more credibility, I think, to what it is that we're trying to do. It's not just an OWASP security thing. It actually is much, much broader than that. So I think it's really important for the type of work that we're doing.
Yeah. So how do you see this in broader adoption perspective? So do you see this helping reach more audience in terms of adoption? Is it?
I do. There's been, since the announcement, there's been a few additional companies reaching out saying, hey, I want to be part of the TC as well. This is great because these organizations have also firmly cemented Cyclone within their entire environment, and in fact, in some cases, are requiring all their downstream suppliers to also standardize on Cyclone. So it's kind of a big deal. Again, like the working model, I don't see it really changing all that much. It only changes really once you're up to the core working group and higher. But for day-to-day things that we do, like this call and that sort of thing, nothing really changes, which is exactly what we wanted. We wanted that whole equal seat at the table type of approach. But yeah, in terms of adoption, I think this is going to really help us. Again, we were already
have some kind of evangelizing. Does ICMA has a kind of a conference, just like OWASP has a circuit of conferences where?
I don't know. I don't know, but the TCs definitely talk to one another. I mean, like TC39 just happens to be the 100th meeting for the TC39 folks is actually being held in San Diego next year at ServiceNow. Which is, I guess, unbeknownst to me before we even went down this path in August. Yeah, my employer was, I guess, really big in ECMA. I did not know that. It's one of the things when you work for a larger organization, you don't know what everybody's doing. But yeah, several people have reached out saying, how do I get more actively involved? Right, which is fantastic, right? So no, this is good. We're trying to release 1.6, which will include all this stuff in December, because our spec is pretty much done at this point. We are about 80% done with the cryptography work. So in terms of that executive order, SBOM played a big part of that, but there were also other transparency requirements as part of that executive order that were not part of the SBOM requirement. So I find it interesting that, I don't know if they did that intentionally or if one part of the government just wasn't talking to the other part of the government, because they were literally talking about cryptography and inventory, and they did not mention bill of materials. But it is a requirement, and there is an OMB memo with deadlines for this. So we are about 80% done with our cryptography work, and Cyclone will be the only one that can do all the transparency requirements that are outlined in that executive order, which is kind of important. We ended up taking a bunch of additional use cases that weren't part of that cryptography work, which is why it's taking a little bit longer. They were originally focused on non-quantum safe algorithms, right? Because they wanted to, have everything quantum safe. But there's obviously a lot of other use cases for cryptography, right? Anything from just weak ciphers to discovering, where TLS is, and what ciphers are on what services. For example, we're talking about services and part of those SysSBOM groups. And then, of course, what do? Right? Even if you have a service, well, you can define maybe, well, here's these ciphers, here's these things available on TLS, but then that service might actually implement a library within which then actually protects data. And you can specify all of that. So it's like end-to-end transparency with cryptography. And then you add in the hardware piece, and now you can describe like little hardware crypto devices. So it's pretty robust in all of its capabilities. So we're really excited about it. So that's another guide that we're going to be working on probably after the release of 1.6 in December.
So I do have a request. So like I and one of the colleagues of mine from Microsoft have been interested in kind of talking about the SBOM, the life cycle, and at the same time the CycloneDX specification. Like I'm more keen on the CycloneDX. Him coming from Microsoft might more keen on SPDX. So we've been I was thinking of submitting a talk for OWASP. Like I'm involved in OWASP AppSec conference on the West Coast. So I was thinking of going through the attestation and probably just going over the CycloneDX as a whole and kind of giving an overall picture of different pieces of the software transparency standard in general. Once I have some material, I do want your thoughts. So I'll come back to you when I have something concrete.
Yeah, that'd be great. Is this I can't remember what the name of the conference is, but is this kind of the replacement conference for AppSec Cali?
This is AppSec BNW, which is Vancouver, BC.
Oh, okay, up north.
Seattle.
Okay.
Yeah, we are northwest, FNG.
Got it. Okay.
We get a few people from Cali, but Cali itself is a big community. So
right. Okay. Yeah, I've been to the one. They used to have it in what was it? Was it Santa Monica?
Mm-hmm.
One of those. It's literally like right on the beach.
Yep.
So, yeah, that was nice. But yeah, send them over to me once you have some stuff, and I'll be happy to kind of review it or whatever you need. Just let me know.
Yeah. But
awesome.
if you do have suggestions on like what parts to focus in terms of like what's new, and so I'm happy to kind of take that. Right. I see more evangelizing as one of the things I kind of want to get into. Kind of show people that hey, CycloneDX is more than SBOM. There are so many materials coming through.
Yeah. I don't know if we're gonna move. I kind of have this love-hate relationship with SBOM. I don't, I've written about this, but so I'm not gonna re-articulate it. But it's interesting because we started out as a bill of materials standard. So that meant hardware and services and everything else. We got into vulnerabilities, we got into machine learning, we're getting into cryptography and attestations. The work that we're going to be doing in 1.7 has nothing to do with bills of materials, but everything to do with transparency. So it's interesting how Cyclone has kind of morphed from, or is morphing, because we're seeing it happen, morphing from like a general purpose bill of materials standard to more of a transparency expression language type of standard, which is kind of where I see it going. Yeah, I just find that really interesting.
Question on that, Steve. Do you think that's because of the industry demanding that, or government sort of demanding the requirements from vendors? Or what do you think is driving that?
Yeah, I think a lot of it actually has to do with government, right? I was on a call earlier, and the person on the other end was talking about hardware. He worked for a medical device manufacturer, right? And a lot of medical device manufacturers use Cyclone because the quote unquote killer app is dependency track. It's free. It allows them to do everything they need to do, and uh, um, it works. It's purpose built. But I asked them about hardware because obviously they have hardware, and they're not really. I mean, they have it in a spreadsheet, I think, something like that today, and there's really no uh, incentive for them to Cyclone. However, this same individual mentioned that cryptography was also, really big on their radar, and that one of their hardware modules had a crypto failure. It was vulnerable or whatnot, and I certainly mentioned that the work that we're doing with 1.6 with cryptography can actually apply to hardware, and suddenly the lights went on. And I think a lot of the cryptography work, because it's security related, will in fact drive some transparency for hardware. Will it drive all of it? No, I don't expect to get, H bombs from, the IoT devices I buy on Amazon, right? It's not going to happen. But for the important things in life, medical device maker, manufacturers, the um, guidance systems on a 737 or whatever the case is. For the things that matter, I think you'll see a lot more transparency, but it's probably going to be driven a lot more by regulation, government regulation specifically, and security and public safety use cases would be my guess.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, that's what I thought. Just want to get your insight on that. That makes sense to me.
That's just my guess. Yeah.
Are we derailing your conversation on the attestation guide?
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of offline work that we all kind of need to do. Is kind of where we're at.
Is this a guide just somewhere like on your computer, or is it publicly available? And also,
I posted the image of this in the Slack channel. There's a work stream attestations Slack channel in the CycloneDX Slack workspace. So this visualization is there. And then if you'd like access to the guides, Ricardo, let me just ping me your GitHub handle, and I'll give you access to that. Right now, it's kind of locked down because we're working on some other things as well in there.
yeah, let me send it to you on Slack.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll jump now, Steve, but I will.
All right.
If you send a link for the claims, GitHub,
Yep.
or I can maybe start on that.
All right. Very good. Do you have access to the repo?
I think so. If not, I'll post on the
Yeah, please do.
channel.
All right. All right. And I'll post on the channel once I get the kind of outline done, all these markdown files created. I'll let you know.
All right. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Take
Cheers. All right.
Bye. Bye, Ricardo. Nice meeting you.
I think I've seen Manoj on the CISA working groups before. I'm pretty sure he has participated. I haven't met him one-on-one yet.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got different people coming in and out. Sometimes Jeff Williams shows. There's another guy, Derek. He sometimes shows. Just depends on people's schedules. You know how it is.
Right. Yeah, no, I completely understand. No, but this is a great guide. I was just going through like what you're presenting here. I think introduction makes sense, standards, making attestation claims. Like what's your thought there, like on those claims, and how would you do that?
Well, the claims is really about, right, and this is why there's another chapter on evidence, but it's basically tying together one or more requirements, one or more pieces of evidence that support your claims of compliance or conformance to those requirements, And then you do have an option to set like your level of conformance, right? It's because the world isn't just black and white. One of the examples that we typically play around with, just because it's squishy, for lack of a better word, is a common requirement that do your developers have yearly security training? Yes or no? Well, the answer might be, well, 80% of them have that requirement, but the other 20% won't have that until next year. So that means that my conformance would be like a 0.8, indicating 80%. And I might also then add a mitigation strategy to inform the person that I'm attesting to of what I'm going to do about that other 20% and when I'm going to do it by.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So one of the things I want to put in this guide is some, besides illustrations, is some examples, right? In the SBOM guide, we had examples of different things, right? Like we had examples for, nested component assemblies, and we had examples of, embedding things, but they're not necessarily dependencies of that thing that they're embedding in, just real life examples of things. We kind of need to do the same thing with this guide as well. So if you wanted to maybe come up with maybe some example, an example of maybe, how this could apply to tacos, for example, once you get a machine readable version of that available, that might actually be useful.
Yeah, no, that's a
Um,
good idea. Yeah, I'm trying to like providing an example. I think that's key, right? Because that people
yeah,
can use that as an example, as a benchmark. Okay, maybe I can recreate this.
yeah.
Um,
We have a repository where we have all of the third-party standards that we've converted thus far. So we've got BSIM, we've got like 3 or 4 different OWASP standards. We've got one of the PCI standards. I'll have another PCI standard in there, this week sometime. SSDF is in there, and we're also talking with NIST about possibly even doing all their standards in machine readable format. So that's a possibility as well. But
include FIFS 140.
I've got the notes from our conversation with NIST. I think it was it 163 and something else that they wanted to see. Oh, it was 853 was definitely one of them.
Yeah, that's RMF. For
Right,
sure.
exactly. um, yeah, what was the other one? Hmm,
Reason I
looking
bring
at
that up because I mean 140, right? -2 is the security requirements for cryptographic modules.
yeah.
This is what you're talking about today in terms of cryptographic tooling and transparency.
Yeah. And there's in addition to that, there's things like the um oh, it's from NSA. It's not a standard, it's a it's guidelines or something like that. I'm not sure what they called it. Um but there's other government documents out there as well that we can
No, that's good. Yeah,
here's the
I didn't mean to, just make you research that, but it makes sense.
no, there's the ECMA introduction. I just posted that in the chat. And then here's a blog post on the CBOM stuff. We also have a blog post going out on attestations. I just need to review the final copy of that. Kayla and Jeff Williams have been working on that. So that'll probably be going out, I would imagine. I don't know if it'll be this week, but it'll certainly be next week at the latest.
Got it.
One of the things that we want to try to do is influence our friends in the federal government that PDFs are not sustainable, especially for if you get a large organization and you sell tens of thousands of products to the U.S. government, and there are these companies, that CEO is not going to sign 10,000 PDFs. They're not going to do it. And you would never want to attest to the entire organization because different teams have different levels of compliance at different times. So that could also be a very dangerous thing. And most large organizations aren't going to attest to their entire organization.
Yeah.
The small startups can, obviously, but so that whole PDF manual thing is problematic. So we want to try to influence our government friends as much as possible without necessarily lobbying them, because OWASP cannot do that.
Mhm. And I like this guide here because obviously I'm sure you guys really took the time to think of all the scenarios, right? And looking at the signing component in your guide, you're talking about signatories and
Yeah,
then signing for authenticity.
right.
Um,
Yeah, we have both of those independent concepts.
and how would that work in your head, like with the model that exists now or that needs to be implemented in within industry or government?
Yeah, so signatories are basically, the thing of like, I certify to the best of my knowledge that the information I provided is correct, right? And then you put your name, you put your role, etc. Then you can apply either a digital signature or an analog one. I mean, most CEOs are not going to have digital signatures, right? Because most organizations don't have signing certs for every single one of their employees. It just doesn't happen. So analog signatures are still a thing. So we need to support that use case because again, we want to try to bring everybody to the table. We don't want to have a standard that's great that nobody can use. We want people to use it today and then be able to advance to more machine readable, proper use of digital signatures in the future. But for signatories, we support both digital and analog. And then obviously we support envelope signing within Cyclone. So we support both XML signature as well as JSON signature format, which is an envelope signing thing in JSON. We've supported that for a number of years already. So you can sign a part of a document, which is what we currently do. So I just got a message from my headset that I need to recharge.
Okay.
I've been on the phone for
Quite some time today.
yeah, it's been a day. I'm surprised it's out of juice already, but I didn't have an early start today. But yeah, so that's kind of up with our signing. So
Yeah, because I was thinking about the analog, right? Especially like if you're, verifying that data, how would I guess that person submit the analog data to you through this mechanism that you're with the guidance, right?
it's basically a scanned image, like a TIFF or JPEG or something like that. That's actually embedded in the bill of material.
So that's the way you would see it. Okay.
Yeah. So that would be one way, and just scanning it in. Another way is just a link to the analog signature itself with a hash of what it is. I think we support that use case as well. I'd have to check. But yeah, it's still a requirement today. So um, we wanted to support everybody's use case because again, we're going for more general purpose. We're not going for the utopian version of reality. We wanted to something that everybody could kind of use right now
Yeah,
and then grow with in the future.
I kind of like that, right? Like the walk run, I mean the walk
Yeah.
crawl process and this state in which the organization's in right now.
Yeah. We thought a little bit about quality as well. We had the quality matrix in the SBOM guide, which got a lot of press. A lot of positive feedback came from that in terms of the 5 dimensions of quality. We'll probably do something very similar with the attestation, right? What actually makes up a quality attestation? So we'll probably do something like that with this as well, be my guess.
Yeah, I would think so because you probably have to define that standard or however that standard is going to be the quality, right? Like how do you measure quality? Start
Yeah,
there. And who defines that standard?
yeah. So we'll be that's something we're going to have to probably talk through as we're creating the guide. We had a lot of discussions when we were creating the SBOM guide on, hey, what do we want to include? What does the guidance want to be? Right? There was a lot of discussion on that. We'll probably have the same kind of thing when it comes to the quality of the attestations as well.
I'm looking at your quality revised SBOM quality matrix. Trying to look, have I seen that?
It's in the SBOM guide. Let me see if I can.
I mean, I've looked at a lot of the CycloneDX stuff. I guess I need to look at that matrix just to see what the measurements are. Because I mean, you know, we technically support CycloneDX and import CycloneDX SBOM.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's see. I just like to. Let's see. SBOM quality. So this is the section on quality that we have in the guide.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
we'll probably have something a little bit different, obviously, for attestations. Attestations are not the same thing as inventory of things.
Right.
So we'll probably have a little bit different quality indicators for that.
Yeah, got it. Makes sense. You know, I've been meaning to ask you, how many members are, I know like the Slack channel has a lot of people in it, but like how many CycloneDX official members are there that are supporting, you know, the production of the CycloneDX at this station, let's say, or even other standards?
Well, we've got I think there's like 6 of us doing the attestation, something like that. Plus I got some internal people at ServiceNow that are providing feedback.
I think Steve's headphone may have died, so therefore his connection terminated and is still recording. So I'm not sure. Let me pause the recording here.